Most notorious dictators in 20th century. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein, born in 1937, rose to infamy as a brutal dictator who ruled Iraq from 1979 until 2003. His reign was characterized by an iron-fisted authoritarian regime, marked by a pervasive cult of personality and ruthless suppression of opposition. Employing fear, propaganda, and a merciless secret police force, Hussein maintained an atmosphere of intimidation and control over the population. One of the darkest chapters of Hussein's regime was the horrific treatment of various ethnic and religious groups within Iraq, notably the Kurds and Shiites. The Iran-Iraq War witnessed his use of chemical weapons against both military personnel and civilians, culminating in the infamous massacre in Halabja in 1988. The Anfal campaign against the Kurdish population further highlighted his willingness to commit atrocities. In 1990, Saddam Hussein shocked the world by invading Kuwait, prompting international condemnation and sanctions that severely weakened Iraq's economy and isolated the nation on the global stage. Despite the economic hardships faced by the Iraqi people, Hussein directed the country's resources towards personal gain and grandiose projects, leaving the average citizen to suffer the consequences of his rule. Estimates of the total death toll vary, with some sources suggesting a range of several 100,000 to over 1 million deaths directly attributable to Saddam Hussein's regime. Ultimately, Hussein's actions caught up with him when a US-led coalition invaded Iraq in 2003, resulting in his capture, trial, and subsequent execution in 2006 for crimes against humanity. The fall of Hussein's regime brought an end to decades of brutal oppression and paved the way for a new chapter in Iraq's history, although it also left behind a nation grappling with the aftermath of his authoritarian rule. Saddam Hussein's dictatorship remains a somber reminder of the extent to which unchecked power, human rights abuses, and aggressive foreign policies can devastate a nation and its people. Iraq continues to grapple with the legacy of his regime and strive for a more stable and inclusive future. Pol Pot, born Salah Sar in 1925, was the brutal dictator of Cambodia and the leader of the Khmer Rouge, a communist revolutionary group. He rose to power in Cambodia in 1975 after the Khmer Rouge overthrew the Khmer Republic government. Pol Pot's reign, lasting until 1979, resulted in one of the most devastating genocides in modern history, known as the Cambodian Genocide. Once in power, Pol Pot pursued a radical ideology aimed at transforming Cambodia into an agrarian, classless society. He sought to eliminate all vestiges of modernization, including urban centers, education, technology, and religion. This radical vision led to forced labor, mass displacement, and executions of those deemed a threat to the regime, including intellectuals, professionals, and anyone associated with the previous government. The Khmer Rouge implemented extreme policies, forcing people into rural labor camps, where they were subjected to intense physical labor, malnutrition, and inhumane living conditions. Families were torn apart, and individuals were forbidden from practicing their religion, expressing dissent, or having any personal freedoms. The Cambodian Genocide, lasting from 1975 to 1979, resulted in the deaths of an estimated 1.7 million people, about a quarter of Cambodia's population. Victims included intellectuals, ethnic minorities, city dwellers, and those perceived as enemies of the regime. Mass executions, torture, forced labor, and disease were the primary causes of death. Pol Pot's regime ended in 1979 when Vietnamese forces invaded Cambodia and overthrew the Khmer Rouge government. Pol Pot fled to the Thai border and continued to lead a guerrilla resistance against the new Cambodian government. He remained a symbol of fear and oppression until his death in 1998. Pol Pot's reign left an indelible scar on Cambodia, and the country is still grappling with the trauma and legacy of the Khmer Rouge era. His brutal policies and genocidal actions represent a dark period in Cambodian history, emphasizing the importance of preventing such atrocities from occurring in the future. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was a German politician and dictator who rose to power as the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, also known as Nazi Party. His ideologies and actions had profound and devastating consequences during the 20th century. Hitler's rise to power began in the early 1930s, and by 1933, he became Chancellor of Germany, consolidating power and transforming the democratic Weimar Republic into a totalitarian regime. Hitler's political platform was based on extreme nationalism, anti-Semitism, and anti-communism. He propagated a belief in Aryan racial superiority and sought to create a totalitarian state that would dominate Europe and eventually the world. Hitler's ambitions led to the outbreak of World War II in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. During World War II, Hitler implemented genocidal policies, most notably the Holocaust, which aimed to systematically exterminate 6 million Jews along with millions of others, including Roma, disabled individuals, homosexuals, and political dissidents. The Holocaust involved mass murder through methods such as mass shootings, forced labor, and extermination camps using gas chambers. Hitler's aggressive expansionist policies and invasions of neighboring countries, such as Poland, France, and the Soviet Union, caused immense death and destruction, ultimately leading to the death of tens of millions of people during World War II. Hitler's actions and ideologies directly resulted in unprecedented devastation and loss of life. Approximately 17 million people have been killed during his period. In 1945, as Allied forces closed in on Berlin, Hitler retreated to his bunker and ultimately committed suicide on April 30th, bringing an end to his reign of terror. Hitler's legacy is one of infamy, symbolizing the horrors of totalitarianism, genocidal ideologies, and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked power and hatred. His actions serve as a somber reminder of the importance of promoting peace, tolerance, and human rights to prevent such atrocities from happening again. Joseph Stalin, born in 1878, was a pivotal figure in 20th century Soviet history, rising to prominence after Vladimir Lenin's death. He became the General Secretary of the Communist Party and eventually established himself as the undisputed ruler of the Soviet Union. Stalin's leadership was characterized by an authoritarian regime, marked by purges, forced industrialization, and collectivization of agriculture. Stalin's vision was to rapidly industrialize the Soviet Union and transform it into a modern, socialist state. This ambition led to the implementation of the first five-year plan in 1928, focusing on rapid industrial growth through state control and centralized planning. While it significantly advanced Soviet industrial capabilities, it came at an immense human cost. One of the darkest periods under Stalin's rule was the Great Purge, where he orchestrated mass purges and executions to eliminate perceived threats to his regime. Millions were arrested, subjected to show trials, sent to labor camps, or executed. The brutality and scale of this repression were unprecedented, instilling fear and stifling dissent throughout the Soviet Union. Stalin also enforced forced collectivization of agriculture, which aimed to consolidate small farms into larger state-controlled entities. This policy led to widespread famine, most notably the Holodomor in Ukraine, causing millions of deaths due to starvation. However, approximately 23 million people have been killed during Stalin's regime. During World War II, Stalin played a crucial role in the defeat of Nazi Germany, but his reign continued to be marked by oppressive policies. The post-war era saw the establishment of Soviet satellite states in Eastern Europe, further expanding Stalin's influence. Stalin's death in 1953 marked the end of his autocratic rule, but his legacy left an indelible mark on the Soviet Union and the world. Despite industrial advancements and victory in World War II, Stalin's era was marred by widespread suffering, death, and the suppression of fundamental human rights. His reign serves as a tragic reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of upholding individual liberties and democracy. Mao Zedong was a Chinese revolutionary, political theorist, and founding father of the People's Republic of China, where he served as the chairman of the Communist Party of China from 1949 until his death. His leadership significantly shaped modern Chinese history and had a profound impact on the 20th century. Mao emerged as a key figure in the Chinese Communist Party during the early 1920s. His ideas, influenced by Marxism-Leninism, adapted to the Chinese context, led to the establishment of a revolutionary base and eventual victory in the Chinese Civil War against the nationalist forces. On October 1, 1949, Mao proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China, signaling the end of the Chinese Civil War and the start of communist rule. Mao's policies aimed to rapidly transform China from an agrarian society into an industrial and socialist nation. The first major initiative was the land reform campaign, redistributing land from landlords to peasants. This was followed by the first five-year plan emphasizing rapid industrialization, state control, and collectivization of agriculture. One of the most devastating periods of Mao's rule was the Great Leap Forward, an ambitious campaign to accelerate industrialization and agricultural collectivization. However, this campaign led to a massive famine due to forced agricultural collectivization and unrealistic production targets, resulting in an estimated 15 to 45 million deaths. During his rule, approximately 49 to 78 million people have been killed due to various reasons. During the Cultural Revolution, Mao aimed to reassert control and eliminate perceived enemies. This radical socio-political movement targeted intellectuals, political rivals, and traditional Chinese culture. The violence, repression, and destruction during this period caused immense suffering and loss of life. Mao's death in 1976 marked the end of an era, but his legacy is complex and enduring. While he is celebrated for unifying China and establishing a communist state, his policies and campaigns also resulted in immense human suffering and social upheaval. Mao Zedong remains a controversial figure, admired by some for his role in China's modernization and reviled by others for the catastrophic consequences of his policies. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and like us.